Greetings, fellow Cameroonians and our Anglophone brothers and sisters at home and abroad. This is Chairman Capo Daniel of PRAP. We want to set the record straight on election figures and make some corrigendum about the podcast message we put out today. So we want to make a factual error from the podcast as a result of written error. I had a script and I could not refer to the right numbers in the script, so I want to make this correction. I mentioned in our podcast today that Paul Biya won by 8% margin. That means he won 53% and then Issa Chiruma 33%. If you minus it, it is not 8%, it is 18%. So that was a mistake I made. It was not a deliberate manipulation of the information. I want to make this crystal clear and to give you the message which we intended to pass to our people, which is very, very important. The key point was to transfer to you people data and our own calculation as organization as we deal with this ongoing situation in Cameroon. What you have to know is that the Anglophone population in Cameroon represents over 20% of the electorate in Cameroon electoral list, and even more by our own estimate. It is less because our people are not engaged and are not encouraged due to the war that is going on in our territory. So the participation of our electorate have been severely suppressed during this election, with only 2% actively engaged and participated in the election. So we understand the fraudulent mechanism that was used by the Paul Biya CPDM regime because we monitored it and we are able to tell our people exactly what went wrong and how we could prevent them. Anglophone is made up of about 30% of the population of Cameroon. We estimated that 90% of them would have voted for Issa Chiruma if they were actively engaged in the presidential election in Cameroon, but they did not. So they lost 20 to 30% of the total national vote that was supposed to come to the Anglophone zone. It could have dramatically changed the outcome and made it harder for any fraud to go unnoticed if our region participated actively. And I'm going to explain to you why so that you can have it. You can get our point of the podcast today very, very clearly. In other words, if the Anglophone vote was not suppressed, Issa Chiruma could have overturned the result of the election in Cameroon as we see it, or at least expose the fraud more clearly. Why? Because we understood the mechanism that Paul Biya used to cheat in this election. What they used was the electoral list, which they draw from the Cameroon National Identity Card. So people who did not vote, their vote was counted for CPDM. So it was important to offset their mechanism by increased voters turnout on the ballot box itself. So it is very fundamental for us to understand how people were cheated, how was the numbers of the result, where did that number came from, and how did Paul Biya cheat. We have to know that. Because if you don't know, it is not possible to prevent fraud. So we could have made victory in Paul Biya very illegitimate, which is illegitimate today. So let us be clear. Had we not been suppressed, had the vote of the Anglophones at home and abroad, not just home, because we are almost 2 million voters, not just at home, but also abroad, the result could have looked very, very differently. We must not let our presentation of showing the weaknesses of our own people be misconstrued as support for what the regime is doing or giving them excuses. But we must keep on challenging the narrative that legitimizes the result by telling you people the truth. Our main purpose of telling you the truth is for us to fix things. It's not to praise Paul Biya or say that he's smart, no. So I want to reinforce the correction and emphasizes the main point that we seek to put out there so that you should understand clearly. So, this is our main point. Even with the extreme low turnout of the Anglophone population at home and abroad, the total vote counted from the Anglophone region, Northwest and Southwest, by the Electoral Commission that was announced in the election recorded 10% of total vote voted in this election. Our estimate in PRAP is that 2 million Anglophones did not vote, yet with a low turnout, we still had 10% of the total national vote. This is both within the home and abroad, according to the Cameroon result. So, the misguided lockdown and misguided activism and leaders that we have in this Anglophone region that have put fear in the heart of Anglophones, even those who abroad did not vote because they are afraid. They think that to vote means that you are supporting the regime. It means that you don't want independence and all these things, which is not the case. So there was voters suppressed in our Anglophone region that was very effective. That take away 2 million votes for Issa Chiruma. If we had encouraged massive participation at all levels of this election, registration and going to the ballot votes to vote, we could have not allowed Paul Biya to exploit this loophole that he knows, and he kept it to exist to exploit it. Issa Chiruma could have easily overturned the result. For real, there is a real chance for him to win through the ballot box. It was very real. That is why he left the government to try to campaign. So we know the regime will always attempt to rig election in any case. We know that they would try to rig election in any case. But we should never make it easy for them, because denying them the easy way and proving that they don't represent the people undermines them and even affects their international perception. So, by making the margin of Issa Chiruma potential victory so obvious by participating, we will weaken the regime's legitimacy and undermine their international support and backing, and will encourage international pressure for change in Cameroon. This is the point we are making. When we participate fully, we expose fraud and we put the regime on the defensive, making it harder for them to claim legitimacy in representing the Cameroon people, or that they represent the true interests of the Cameroon people. This is very critical, and it gives us a strong base to speak from. So how can our Anglophone leaders in the Ambazonian struggle talk about politics in Cameroon legitimately when they were saying that they don't want to have anything to do about it? How can they even celebrate the victory of Issa Chiruma? Until some of them are congratulating him when they say they don't want to have any part about it. They don't even want anybody to talk about it. So it gives us a strong ground from which we can speak and a voice even in the Cameroon political atmosphere. So I want to make this strong correction of the mistake we made this morning. It was not just about the numbers. It was about how the suppression of Anglophone votes could have changed the entire narrative if we had stood up to vote. We must remember that participating in elections, even when you are, whether you call it occupation, whatever name you choose to describe our relationship with Cameroon, participating in election does not mean you are legitimizing fraud or you are supporting the regime. And this is even more important because there are other elections that are going to come subsequently, and our people need to be educated and engaged. It actually makes it very harder for the regime to cheat if we are outspoken and we are engaged. So let no one mistake PRAP's criticism of Ambazonian activists and Ambazonian and Anglophone leaders who call for boycott and use other tactics to intimidate our people for them not to vote. Don't mistake our criticism for them. We are not giving excuse for the regime. We are not supporting the regime. We condemn the regime for what it is. And it is a simple thing. You don't need to tell anybody that the whole Cameroon have isolated themselves from this regime. We condemn what they have done. They have rigged the election. They have stolen the election. But we must also educate our people to recognize our own shortcomings, because this is a very critical weakness that we have had, that the Paul Biya regime and the CPDM simply just exploit it, and they just sit and relax, knowing that we are going to do the same error and they're going to exploit it. Sometimes they even engineer some of our activists and people to do the same error so that they will continue to do what they are doing. So we must understand this so that we can know the way forward. We must have a way forward. People's life will continue, never in any case. So we must have a way forward. At the end of the day, Cameroonians will come back to go back to their day-to-day life. We don't believe the capacity on the ground exists as we have predicted for a popular overtaking of the government. You have seen all our prediction. There have been sporadic violence all across Cameroon except Yaoundé. Yaoundé is absolutely quiet. And it is critical for our people to understand why we take the position we do and why we propose the solutions we propose, because there are no options. Our opposition, by taking into account this internal dynamic, by our people taking into account the very nature of our own people, we are going to put them up for success. The internal dynamic that is unfortunate, that has allowed the regime to cling to power, must be understood and be factored in any way going forward. So, and it is also important that we point out and shame those who have made this situation the way it is, because we cannot afford to allow our people to keep listening to the same misguided voices, misleaders, misactivists. We have to stop our people from listening to these people who have led us into repeating the same setbacks and mistakes collectively without any accountability. They must be able to hold them account, and we will hold them account. We must hold each individual to account for the damage they have caused to our people. And the consequences, we must show our people so that they understand the consequences. If we allow those who contributed to these lapses to continue to prescribe what is good for our people in the future, our people will have nothing but calamity, and misery will follow them. We have been right all along simply because we stick on principle. Our people will remain under the influence of these flawed individuals who don't know what they're talking about. All they have is ego, jealousy, envy, biases. They are not capable of going above their individual personalities and interests for the sake of the common interest. So, this message that we are putting out is not making any excuse for the regime. We are saying that we're saying that for true change to come, for us to move forward positively, we must be honest about our own eternal challenges to generate the political capital for the right thing to be done, even for our population to be able to harness their own potential to move forward. We must educate our people. It is necessary. So hope you get it. We just wanted to put this information before we come back to address the regime and address the situation. But I think that it is better for me to send a message to the regime publicly so that our audience will understand us exactly what we are doing. The regime can succeed to get these temporary wins, but they should understand that they have been exposed and there will be serious consequences on them going forward because they have been exposed. But I have a very powerful and very personal message to send to Paul Biya, and I'll call him for what he is. He is His Excellency, the President of Cameroon. I want to address you, Mr. President Paul Biya, and Madame Chantal Biya, and Frank Biya. I want to address you people directly, the three of you. So this is my message to the CPDM, Paul Biya regimes, and the Paul Biya dynasty. We want to make it clear to you people that the farce that we are witnessing in Cameroon, that is being played in the international stage, is a primitive charade of politics of Père de la Nation. This your idea of pushing yourself as chief of chiefs. is primitive, is shameful. You people are the disgrace of the black race, that we have the oldest president in the world. At 93 years old, Mr. Paul Biya, Mr. President, you are still holding up to power, even with nothing to show for, except the war in Noso. It is simply a shame in itself, a big disgrace. We are ashamed of you. You have success to deceive the Cameroon people and Francophones to focus on Gongo and Atanganji Paul, while you are grooming your son, Frank Biya, to inherit the throne that does not belong to you. The presidency in Cameroon does not belong to you. Palais de Unité does not belong to you. This is a political dynasty in play, and we want to expose it. You can fool everybody, but you cannot fool everybody. We are here to speak the truth. A blatant attempt to keep power in your family hands is a shame. Cameroon deserves far more better than to be treated like a family heirlooms while creating distraction here and there. And you sit in your family table and you are laughing. You think that people do not see what is going on. We see what is going on. And we want the regime to know that we see through their trickery. For decades, we see through their trickery. They have brought nothing but pain and suffering and misery to Cameroon people. Millions of Cameroonians are struggling to walk on foot to cross the desert to seek for freedom and better life elsewhere, because you have become a generational theft of their future. You hide behind the Ambazonian war to stay relevant in power, but you have been exposed by this election. You have no legitimate claim to power